Hello. Hi. Let me introduce myself. I am Dr. Rizwan. I am working as Scientist D in ICMR NIE Chennai. And today I'm going to talk to you about data sharing policy. So we are going to see what data sharing policy is and how we deal with sharing our research data to the public. The learning objectives for this lecture will be to describe what data sharing means in the context of publication, understand the benefits of data sharing and the concerns of authors, understand how to responsibly share data, and write an appropriate data availability statement in your manuscript when you are trying to publish it in a journal. I'm going to make this presentation as a series of questions. So there are 5 questions that I'm trying to answer here. What is data sharing? What data is shared? What not to share? Why share research data? And how to share data. So we will be answering these 5 questions one by one. So please stay with me. What is data sharing? The name suggests practice of making your data, that is study data, available for public use. So as the name suggests, it is very simple. You are going to share your Excel sheet or you are going to share your data in a particular format, maybe an application, to other people who can also access this data and try to analyze it and get the same results as you did, or they may find a different use for that particular data set. So you might come across several different data sets which are available in public domains, right? If you type COVID-19 data for India, it is going to take you to a website where you can download certain data sets as Excel sheet or CSV files, etc. Similarly, there are several online data repositories where you can download secondary data which have been put forward by other researchers. So as a result of their data sharing, we are able to use that data. When we share that data, we are sharing our particular research data, and we need to know how to do that properly. Who are the stakeholders in data sharing? So the data which you generated as a part of your study comes from the study participants themselves. It may be lab samples, it may be animals, or it may be even in vitro samples or materials. So those are the study participants that generate the data. You as the authors are going to analyze it and publish it. The journals are also keeping a copy of the data. The publishers of those journals will also have a responsibility. The data repositories are websites or online containers. This data which you are going to share is stored forever, so it will be a permanent link. The peer reviewers who are going to read your paper and comment on your paper and give you feedback will also need access to these data which you have generated. And finally, funders who fund the study also have a role and say in how the data is shared or not shared. So increasingly funders, especially large funders, require the author to make the data available for the larger public good, so that the data is not sitting in your computer gathering dust after the single objective has been achieved. So the data may have uses beyond what it was generated for. So these are the different stakeholders in data sharing, starting from the study participants. So what data should I share? So this is the common question which we often face. Should I share my case report forms? Should I share my case sheets, MRI reports, CT findings? Should I put out my pathology slides out there? So there are different levels in which you can share your data. So always remember, never give out individual identifying data. That is house address, phone number, email address, or genetic materials which may lead to identification of a person. So no such data which leads to the identification of a person in real life should be shared publicly, with or without the explicit consent of the participant. You might simply share the survey results instead of the raw data. You might share interview transcripts after de-identifying the transcripts if you are conducting a qualitative study. Statistical code is often shared without much problems, but sometimes in your statistical code also you might have put some identifiers. So make sure that your statistical code is devoid of passwords, devoid of individual identification. Make sure that your statistical code is devoid of individual identifiers. Images, if you are trying to share images of patients or slides, make sure that again the proper de-identification is done and proper hiding of the eyes, etc. are done. If you are sharing videos, the same rules apply. spreadsheets or Excel sheets, audio files, text files, image and scan files, and the software which you used during the analysis, or if you have developed a software for this particular purpose, can also be shared. So these are the different elements of data that you have generated as a result of your study that can be shared with the public world. Data sharing not only means your Excel sheet, it does not mean your Stata codes, or it does not mean only your SPSS file. It could mean several things in different contexts. So please remember that whatever data has been generated as a part of your study can be shared with the outside world. There are some don'ts in data sharing. So I have shown you an example of how wrong data sharing can go. This is a book available in Amazon, and it is available across stores, where the individual identifying data of several students who have appeared for a particular exam have been compiled into a book, and they are selling this information. This is something that should not be done by responsible researchers. So make sure that you do not compromise the participant anonymity or privacy. This is something that the ethics committee takes very seriously, and you should always ensure that the participant anonymity and privacy are maintained when you are sharing your data to the journal. Sharing sensitive data, maybe sometimes some people are not very comfortable with sharing income data. Sometimes their sources of income might be illegal activities. If you're especially doing studies on populations who are not legally working in their field, for example, there are vulnerable population like undocumented migrants, or people who are engaged in sex work, or people who are engaged in illegal mining activities. If you are going to do studies on such population, it will be very risky to share any data to the outside world. So make sure that such sensitive data are protected. You do not release such data to the outside world. Do not break any laws or licensing agreements if you have those things built into your study. If you are going to share data which someone else has collected, for example, National Family Health Survey, a survey which is conducted regularly in India, the organization that conducts this is USAID, and they have a data repository in their website where they have collected this data and kept it for use of the researchers. You can download the data and use it for analysis, and you can publish papers on it, but you cannot share that data as such to someone else. So that data has to be shared only by that particular owner of that data. So make sure that you don't share someone else's data even though it is publicly available to you. So these are some of the don'ts in data sharing. So you might wonder, why should I share my hard collected data, collected by my hard work? Why should I share this data to someone else? How is it going to benefit me, or how is it going to benefit my research? So there are many benefits to sharing research data. One particular example that I want to quote here is the sharing of data which has been done in the recent 2 years regarding COVID-19. Only because people were sharing their data left and right in public forums, we were able to achieve the success that we have achieved so far in the control of COVID-19 pandemic. Imagine if everyone did research on COVID-19 and held their data to themselves without sharing it publicly. Do you think we would have progressed so far? Certainly not. Even vaccine research has put out data on COVID-19, and that has helped so many people develop minor variations, or they have tried to see what works and what does not work. So that is huge benefit to the community and to the public in sharing data. It may not directly benefit you, but when many people share data from their research studies, it really helps the public or the community whom you are ultimately trying to help. It also helps in validation, replication, reanalysis, new analysis, reinterpretation, or inclusion into a meta-analysis. As you know, you might have analyzed your data perfectly, but sometimes you might have overlooked certain variables, you might have overlooked certain errors which might be caught by someone else, and it might help you in understanding your paper much better. Sometimes you just analyze your data for a particular objective. Maybe there is only one objective in your paper, and then you are done with it. Sometimes some researchers might have other objectives, secondary objectives, which they can also fit into your data. And if the meta-analysis is being conducted, your raw data will help them to include that into their systematic reviews. So you are contributing to the increase in knowledge by sharing data. The second thing is reproducibility of research. See, if I have done a proper research with perfect documentation, all my data entry is correctly done, and I'm very confident of my data, I will put it out in the public for anyone to see and comment on. So if I am very confident of my methods, if I am very confident of my research, I will certainly put it out to the outside world. And if somebody else tries to do the same thing which what I have done, then it increases the reproducibility and the credibility of my research. So it is to my own benefit that if I put out my data to the outside world and someone says that yes, you have analyzed correctly, or probably this could be changed slightly, then it increases the value of my research and my paper. It reduces research waste. By that I mean, there are so many people doing research on the same topic, collecting the same data. So if I come to know that data is already available on this topic in this particular area, then I will frame a different objective or a slightly different endpoint, and then I can further the knowledge that is already existing rather than replicating or repeating the same thing again and again. Efforts to ensure data are archived, increasing the value of the investment. So if your study is funded or you yourself have conducted the study, if your data is archived, you can use it for later purposes. Sometimes what we do is we conduct the study, the data is collected, we enter the data, we analyze the data and forget about it. So it is, even if you want to see that data after 5 years, 10 years, you don't know where it is, you don't know what the variables mean, you don't know what codes were given and what those codes mean. So if you archive your data in a public repository, it is available for you in the future as well, and as well as it increases the value of investment. For the funder who is funding the study, it shows that the data that we have created is available for anyone to use, and it can be used to further research in human health. So these are some of the benefits of sharing data. As I said in the previous slide, it reduces the burden on the authors in preserving and finding old data. So it also helps in managing data access requests. What I mean by that is, let's say you have published your study, you have put your data in a public access website, and if somebody is requesting you for that data, you simply need to give the link to the public website, and then they can download the data from there. You don't have to go back to your computer, search the folder, hundreds of folders which you have created, and the data, the latest version of the data, we don't know which one it is, that there is a raw data and that there is a processed data and there is a processed data 27/1/2021. So there are many versions, right? So it becomes challenging, and managing one particular data set for one study may not be so challenging, but when you are doing several studies, managing all those data sets will be really difficult. So putting it in a public access website, which I will talk to you about in the later slides, reduces your burden and increases the access to others. Citation and linking. Okay, so you might say, if somebody else is using my data, I get no credit. No, it is not the case. Whenever somebody uses your data, you can ask them to cite your data and provide permanent link with digital object identifier, etc., to ensure that you are being given the credit or you are being cited for the data which you have shared in your website or any online repository. More reliable, evidence-based and a healthier world. So this is the ultimate objective of sharing research data. It creates an environment where people can share data without hesitancy, without fear of being stripped of their achievements while conducting a study, and it also contributes to a healthier world. Imagine if everyone in the world, every researcher in the world shared their data publicly in an online repository after conducting the study, how easy or how useful it would have been for achieving or furthering knowledge in improving human health. Apart from all these reasons which I have just now mentioned, this might be altruistic intentions or in the intention to do good, increasingly journals are also asking for data availability. So give an example of PLOS One, which specifically requires the author to state whether data will be available or not. If data is available, how the peer reviewer or how the reader can access the data. So as you increase your research output, as you are increasing the number of studies you are doing, as you are increasing your level and publishing in high impact journals or high quality journals, at some point you will be asked for a data availability statement. Okay, how are you going to share your data, or if you are not going to share your data, why you are not going to share your data. So this is an important requirement, and that is why we are talking about this in this manuscript writing session. So increasing number of publishers and journals are introducing data sharing policies. Some of the examples are PLOS, Nature, BMJ, Elsevier and Wiley as well. So that is why we need to know how to write this data availability statement and how to share data responsibly. So this is just a repetition of what I have been saying. There are huge benefits to data sharing, which has been exemplified in the recent COVID-19 pandemic, where open sharing of data by researchers across the globe has accelerated the development of vaccine and accelerated our understanding of the pandemic itself and accelerated our efforts to control the pandemic. Okay, so now so far I have told you what data sharing means and what are the benefits of data sharing and why should one share data. Now, having said that data sharing needs to be done, how to do it? So there are several routes to sharing data, some of which I have shown you here. You can either share the data, all your data in the main article itself. Let's say you have only 10 patients in your study or 5 animals in your study. Your data is very less. There is no need for hundreds and thousands of rows. In such cases, you can share all your data in the main article itself as a table. This rarely happens in clinical research or epidemiological research where we are working with hundreds or thousands of patients. So in that case, we have to explore other options. If your data is moderately large, you can use a supplement. So supplements are documents which are attached along with the main article during the submission process. So this is a separate document where you can give your Excel sheet, or you can compress your Excel sheet as a zip file or a RAR file and then attach it during the submission process. So that is also an avenue for sharing data. That is, you are uploading the data file to the journal website during the submission. Then there are something known as repositories. Repositories are nothing but websites which are like, I'm sure all of you have used Google Drive or Dropbox, which are just cloud, they call it cloud storage, right? So something similar to that. These repositories are websites which they're specifically built to hold your data. So for some of the examples I have shown you here, Figshare, Zenodo, Cran Data Hub, Mendeley Data, these are some online data sharing repositories, data sharing services where you can put your data and ask and give someone the link and they can download the data from there. Dryad, GitHub, OSF, these are also some of the examples of online data repositories. Popular among this is GitHub. Some of you might have come across GitHub, where we commonly share statistical codes, but data can also be stored in GitHub. OSF is Open Science Framework, where a lot of researchers share their data, codes, protocols, CRFs and other documents related to your study. So sharing the data is not sufficient. You just upload the Excel file and then it's done. No, it is not that way. You have to share some documentation. So that is something known as metadata. I'm introducing this new word which may be new to many people. Metadata is data about the data. So what is the data about the data? It can be when it was collected, where it was collected, how many patients are there in the data, what each variable means. So in the data will not have the full question which was in the questionnaire. It will be shortened or abbreviated to something like V001, V002, V003. So you have given short names. So what is the actual meaning of that variable? And you might have given codes inside those variables. So 0 means male, 1 means female, 1 means younger age, 2 means older age. So these codes and their labels should also be mentioned in the metadata. And if possible, you can attach the questionnaire itself along with the data so that whoever is downloading the data also knows that this questionnaire was used to collect this data. So documentation is very important along with the data that you are sharing. So please make sure that you prepare some limited, if not extensive, some limited metadata is available so that whatever you are sharing will be useful. It is not like I have shared the data and my job is done. No, you have to be a little bit more responsible than that. You have to share some information about the data as well. So there are 3 basic models of data sharing. One is closed. This is very sensitive data. It should not be shared at any cost. For example, phone numbers, house addresses, email addresses, genetic data, paternal data, etc., etc. So these are absolutely should not be shared. So that is closed, and at no, even if the journal is requesting, even if the peer reviewer is requesting, even if the reader is requesting, these data are closed. At the other end of the spectrum, we have open data. Everything that we have collected, we are going to share, apart from the sensitive data, that is without the personal identifiers. So this is publicly available. Nobody needs to write an email, or nobody needs to have any permission. This is simply available in the website, and you simply click the download button and it comes to your laptop or desktop. So that is completely open data. In between, there is a middle ground called shared, where a request is sent to the author via email or some other mechanism. The author studies the request, sees whether the request is valid or necessary, whether this request is coming from a reliable person, should I share the data with him or not, and some agreement is made between the person requesting and the person who is going to share data. So you can say this data should be shared only for this, should be used only for this purpose, and should not be used for certain other purposes. Commercial purposes are prohibited for this particular data. You can use this data for academic purposes, for teaching, etc., something like that. So at one end there is closed, where no data is shared. At the other end it is open, completely open, without any rules, regulations, or restrictions. And in between there is a shared mechanism, where you put some restrictions on the data which is being requested and the data which is ultimately shared. So these are three basic models. So now coming to the practical part, this is so far whatever I have seen, whatever I have shown is just theoretical knowledge, but now we come to the practical part. What is a data availability statement? So this is a statement that you will write in your manuscript at the end of your manuscript, at the last, or sometimes at the end of methods also. So you can say this data will be available from such and such source on fulfilling such and such conditions. So this data availability statement, also called data access statement, tells the reader where the research data can be obtained from and what are the conditions that have to be met in order to access the data. This is a single line which you will write at the end of your method section or at the end of your manuscript, and this statement must also be written in your manuscript submission system. You must have come across manuscript submission systems in the journals. So in one particular site, in one particular position of the submission process, they will ask you to enter this data availability statement. I will give you some examples of how to write these statements, and then you can modify them to suit your purposes. So this is one example of writing a data availability statement. I'm going to read it out. The data sets generated during and or analyzed during the current study are available in the repository. The name of the repository, it might be GitHub, and we provide a link, a website link to that particular data repository. So this is one way of sharing your data and putting it out in the availability statement. This is a second example. The data sets generated during and or analyzed during the current study are available from the corresponding author on reasonable request. So the person requesting the data has to write an email to the corresponding author stating why he needs the data and what are his intentions with that particular data set. Maybe the person wants to include that data into his systematic review meta-analysis, or he wants to use that data as a teaching material for his students. There could be n number of reasons, and if you see that that reason is okay with you, then you share the data with that particular person who is asking, with the condition that the data should not be shared beyond that person. This is the third example. All data generated or analyzed during the study are included in the published article or in its supplementary information files. So here you are saying that there is no further data beyond what is published. So every data that is associated with this study are already available in the published manuscript. So this is the third way of writing your data availability statement. So please make sure before you are starting the study, you can think about this data sharing policy. Okay, so you can consult with your funder, you can consult with your institution head, or you can consult with your team. If it is a multicentric study, you can consult with the parent institution to find out what sort of a data availability policy or data sharing policy are we going to use. So if we are going to be very open, we can say the first one. If we are going to be semi-open, we can use the second statement. And if the data is small and it can be shared with the manuscript completely, you say the third statement. So these are some examples from BMJ, and these are the statements which BMJ requests you to make during data availability, during the submission process. So data are available in a public open access repository, available upon reasonable request, may be obtained from a third party, all data are included in the article itself, data sharing not applicable as no data sets are generated, and finally no data are available. So these are some of the statements which are requested by BMJ. So here I have shown you an example from one of my own articles, where at the end of the method section we have written the codes and the code book of the statistical analysis are available at. So you can see that the GitHub link with my name in it. So this is one example where you can share your statistical codes. This is another example where the data availability statement has been mentioned. All relevant data and methodological detail pertaining to this study are available in this particular link. Here another example where they have given a link to Dryad. So Dryad is an online data repository. If you click that link, it will take you to the data. This is a screenshot of GitHub where I have shown you that for a particular study that we conducted, all the data and the relevant codes are available as open access. So anyone who goes to this site will be able to download the data and the codes available and the codes along with it and do the analysis. This is the home page of Open Science Framework. It is another website where you can upload your protocols, study related documents, your ethical approvals, your CRFs, your Excel sheets, your statistical codes, etc., etc. So this is also one more website where you can share your data. This is Dryad. As I said previously, Dryad also provides you an avenue for sharing the data, and it gives you a permanent DOI which you can share with anyone. So some of the concerns about data sharing are shown here. I have talked about this in my previous slides as well. So just to refresh you, if you are worried about inappropriate use of your data, you have to provide a rich abstract purpose, use constraints, and supplemental information about your data. So if you are open about what this data should be used for and what are the limitations or restraints or constraints on this data, it will help the user. If you are worried about security and confidentiality, do not share secure and confidential information. If you are worried about lack of acknowledgement or credit, make sure that your data is uploaded in a proper repository and proper citation is requested from the user. So make sure that whoever is requesting your data cites your data adequately. So just I'm going to read the learning objectives once more and see if we have fulfilled them. So at the end of this lecture, you should be able to describe what data sharing means in the context of publication of articles. So we now know what data sharing means. Understand the benefits of data sharing. So now we know what are the benefits of data sharing. It is not that someone will steal your data or take your data away from you. It is not that. After you have conducted your study and published it, you can share your data for the benefit of mankind. Understand how to responsibly share data. So it is not that every data has to be shared. No, you have to share only data which is necessary and does not compromise the anonymity of the participants. You also now know how to write an appropriate data availability statement for your particular manuscript while submitting your manuscript to the journal. So I will leave you with these take-home messages. So prepare a data sharing plan at the beginning of your study. Imagine what you are going to write as a data availability statement for your study. Data sharing adds value to the data, so it adds credibility to your research. It says that you are very confident about your data and therefore you are sharing it. Share data responsibly. Do not make any sensitive data public. Provide adequate metadata. So describe the data which you are sharing adequately so that others can use it in a proper way. Data sharing is essential for the advancement of science. So please share your data at the end of your research. That's all I have for you. I wish you all the best in your manuscript submissions, and thank you.